and then after this line, I'm calling that get name function. I'm calling that get name function. Okay, and printing the value the output of this question. Okay, so first the memory creation will execute for this code. Okay, so first x will be assigned the undefined and then this function will be called. Okay, so on the line number 6 we have invoked the function. Okay, so after the invoking the function, as we have declared function above this line, it will successfully print hello message to the console. Okay, and also we have initialized the value of the x also. So that's why the x will be having the value 7. So let's check it into the browser. Okay, so as you can see, the output of this code is printed, that is hello and 7 as we have expected. Okay, so let me change something from this code. What will happen if I move these two declaration or these two statement to the top? What will happen? As we know from the day one itself, the get name function will able to print the response hello onto the screen or into the console. Okay, so get name will successfully print this hello message onto the console, right? But what will happen to this x? As we know that in the memory creation phase, the JavaScript engine will try or will assign value of the all the variable to undefined. Okay, and we are not initialize this yet, this variable, but still it is we are trying to printing this x value. Okay, so what should it will print? Okay, so as you can see onto the browser, that is it is printing hello first. Okay, so successfully this get name executed because actually this function is copied over to the execution context. So that's why it is successfully calling this function. आता आपण हे फंक्शन या लाईनीच्या खाली लिहिले बरोबर, लाईन नंबर 5 वर आपण हे फंक्शन लिहिले बरोबर, तरी पण जावास्क्रिप्ट एबल टू कॉल दिस फंक्शन. ओके, सो अँड ह्या कंडिशनला काय होतं की जेव्हा आपण एक्स प्रिंट करायला जातो तेव्हा हे प्रिंट का करू नाही शकत, कारण की आपण इनिशियलाइजच्या अगोदरच ते प्रिंट करायला जातो. तर जावास्क्रिप्ट एक स्पेशल कीवर्ड तिथं असाइन करतो, तो म्हणजे कोणता? अनडिफाइंड, म्हणजे द व्हेरिएबल इज नॉट डिफाइंड येट. ओके, सो दॅट्स वाय इट इज प्रिंटिंग undefined. Okay, and what we have seen previously, now the output will be hello and 7. Okay, so actually what JavaScript does, JavaScript will move all the declaration that you have declared into your code. JavaScript काय करेल, तुमचे सगळे व्हेरिएबल आणि सगळे फंक्शन काय करेल, त्यांचे डिक्लेरेशन टॉपला मूव्ह करेल बरोबर. म्हणजे काय करेल, तुम्ही कुठं पण समजा व्हेरिएबल हा समजा इथं जरी मूव्ह केला तर जावास्क्रिप्ट मेमरी क्रिएशनच्या फेजच्या वेळेस हे सगळे डिक्लेरेशन टॉपला नाही, म्हणजे काय होईल तर तुमचा कोड कुठं एरर देणार नाही बरोबर. तर हे झालं, हीच कन्सेप्टला म्हणतात होइस्टिंग. तर दिस इज कन्सेप्ट इज कॉल्ड होइस्टिंग, मूविंग डिक्लेरेशन all the declaration present in the code to the top of this code. Okay, so this is called the hoisting concept in JavaScript. Okay, just very simple. JavaScript will move all these declaration to the top. Okay, so let's revise one simple syntax of the arrow function also. Okay, so you can see that on the line number 5 I have written one simple function get name. Okay, simple function get name. Okay, so this is the function declaration. Okay, so let me write another syntax of the function where get name is equal to this function. Okay, so you know that this is another syntax of mentioning the function, but now the JavaScript will treat it like as a variable only. Okay, so and we have another way to declare the function also, that is arrow function. So how we do that? Okay, just like this is known as the arrow function. So these are the three methods to declare the function in the JavaScript. Okay, so nowadays in higher level frameworks we generally use this arrow syntax only. Okay, and if you want to pass any arguments or parameters, you can pass over it here. Okay, like a comma b. Okay, so this is the concept of the hoisting, that is behavior of moving declaration to the top. Okay, just simple. Okay, then now we will take one project, very simple project. Okay, so up to this point, is anyone having any doubt in the hoisting concept? Please let me know if anyone having any question in this hoisting concept. Hoisting is nothing but moving all the declaration that we have, the all the variable we have declared in the JavaScript code, that will be moved to the top of the code. Okay, so that JavaScript will not encounter any error. Okay, so in other language, if if you trying to print the value of the variable before initialize, then it will give an error. But JavaScript is behaving very differently. It will not give an error. It will give an very simple or very other keyword which is undefined. Okay. Okay. So thank you, Pratiksha and Sakshi. Uh, any other having any doubt? Let me know. Else we will move towards the our project. Please give the responses. Anyone having any doubt? Or if you want to say anything before the project, so you can say. And in the project, we will cover some advanced concept. Okay. So after from the day 1 to day 4, whatever you have learned, we will try to implement it in the project. Okay. And we are using the new syntax and latest syntax of the JavaScript language, which is in the version JavaScript 2020. Okay. So thank you, Vaishnavi Damini. So without wasting time, let me show you what we are making in this project. Mm, just 1 minute. Okay, so today we will make this small project, like, so this is the project in which we can able to the add the our income and expenses. So from this we will get to know our budget in this month. Okay, so this is very simple project, like you can see on the screen here. On this side of the screen you can see the income. Okay, and here on the right hand side, expenses. If you want to add any income or expenses, like that, suppose you have selected here plus, that will, it will become income. Okay, so I will add it to salary and 10,000. Okay, so as you can see, the salary is appended to the income section. Okay, and mm, like suppose I will try to add the expense of 1000 rupees. Okay, so it will add it to the expenses. Okay, so this is very simple project, like we are taking this data and adding to the respective tab, which is income or expenses. Okay, so this will be, we are making like suppose the second profit is from the selling car. Okay, mm, which is 5,000, let's say. Okay, so you can see the appended over to the income. Okay, so this is a very simple project, like to manage the budget. Okay, so in every month we are having some income and having some expenses, so it is very necessary to manage that. So by using this simple project you can easily manage that. Okay, so this we will make with the help of the HTML, CSS and pure JavaScript. Okay, so without wasting time, let me. Okay, so now you know that what we are making. So before explaining the actual, or before writing any code, let me explain the very simple files that is of HTML and the CSS that we are going to use in this project. Okay, so I will not write the HTML code and the CSS code. I will just write the JavaScript code because that's what we want. ओके, सो ऑन दिस HTML कोड आपण काय ह्या HTML मध्ये फक्त ह्या फाईलसाठीचा कोड लिहिलेला आहे, बरोबर. तर हा कोड मी फक्त तुम्हाला एकदा समजून सांगेल. सो फॉर एक्झाम्पल, or let's see this code. Okay, so it is head tag, and you know what we will include, all the metadata of the project we are included in this head tag. Okay, so like linking the external or other links, like if you want to include any fonts, if you want to include any external CSS. Okay, so you can see on the line number 7 I have included external CSS with the name style.css. Okay, so let me see whether yes it is present. Okay, so and in the body I have divided into the two, that is this budget for December, this section and below section. Okay, so this is the code of the this budget for December section. Okay, so you can see that here I have declared one division tag and having value as a budget for December. Okay, which is very simple HTML code. Okay, and for the bottom, for this section or for this section, this will be the code. Okay, so first I am using the select tag and providing option whether it is plus or minus. Plus means INC, which is income, and minus mean EXP, which is expense. Okay, so and we are also providing an option to user that add the description of the income or expense. Okay, so this will be the input tag for this, and for the value, that is the income, this value, it is this input tag, and simply one button with the some image. Okay, so then below this I am showing income and expenses. Okay, all the expenses that was added by the user will be shown here. Okay, so the all the income will be shown in this division tag. Okay, so all the explain, all the expenses will be shown, or all the income will be shown to the this tag. Okay, so we will append the income list with the help of the JavaScript code. Okay, so and all the expenses will be shown here, like you also can see it into the screen that all the income were appended to below the income, and all the expenses on this right side below the expenses were. Okay, and here if you see on the line number 99, I am importing, or I am included the one script tag and importing the file with the name app.js. So I am externally included, that we have seen yesterday how to include JavaScript in the page. So I have externally, all I am importing from the other JavaScript code. Okay, so this is the HTML code, and let me go to the style of CSS. Okay, so this is just a simple CSS that we have already learned, that is star means all, adding property to all the document. Okay, so for this page the margin is 0, padding like this. Okay, so for similar like this we have added CSS. Okay, so um, so I have explained the HTML, what we are having in the HTML and in the style.css. Okay, so up to this point, is anyone having any doubt in the HTML code or CSS code? Then he can put it into the chat box, because now we are started, or we will start writing the JavaScript code. Okay, so if you have any question up to this point, let me know. Okay, so thank you, Naneshwari. Is any other? This is a simple HTML code. Okay, and you already know how to write HTML, how to create this page like this. Okay, so thank you, Naneshwari, for the replying, and also Pratiksha. Okay, so before going to make any project, let me tell you, you should first try to design that project. Okay, so what will be the module, or what will be the code you are writing? Like, suppose for example, if you want to write the code for the registration and the login of the, okay, registration and the login. Okay, so for this, design like that. So for where, which module will handle the registration process, or which module will handle the login process. Okay, so what do you mean by module? Module means nothing but the making the separate code for the functionality. Like for the login functionality, we'll make different module, and for the sign up or the registration module, we will make the different file. Okay, so this is the concept of the module. That is, we are dividing our code, or dividing our project into different modules, so that it is more readable, and also which is uh, more good for the performance also. Okay, so in this project we will see the concept of the module, and the encapsulation also, and the constructor also. Okay, so what do we mean by encapsulation? Encapsulation, which is the concept from the OOPS, that is object oriented programming, and we are actually hiding the implementation details. Okay, so if you have seen, in the case of API, that is application programming interface, we are not able, or we don't have to see the code, what the API creator has did into that code. Okay, so we don't want to see that. We are just using that method of the API, and trying to get the output of this code, or trying to get the work done. Okay, so actually they are encapsulating, or they are hiding all the implementation details from us. Like for example, in your JavaScript, suppose you have declared one array. Okay, and you know that the length method, that is which is used for the calculating length of the array, we don't know actually what JavaScript is doing behind the scene to calculate that length, right? We don't, and we also not written any code related to calculating the length of the array. So JavaScript is actually encapsulating, that is hiding the implementation of that length function from us. This is called the encapsulation. Okay, so, and I just explain what is module. Okay, so we will be using these two concepts very uh, very on advanced level in this project. Okay, so you know that if you hide the details, like hiding the data from the user will make it the more advantageous. Like the code will not vulnerable to any outside authority, or that the code will be safer. Okay, so I am trying to saying that the make all the variables private. Okay, not the public, so that anyone will not able to change the variables. Okay, so the next question of yours will be how we can make the variables private, and how you can do the encapsulation in the JavaScript. Okay, so let's start our project. So I have said that whenever you trying to do any project, just try to divide it into the parts. Okay, so I have divided this project of ours in the three parts. Okay, first one, which is the mm, budget controller. Okay, what does budget controller is doing? It is taking all the budget and managing that budget tag in the backend. Okay, it is managing all the budget related operations, like adding income due to this income tag adding expenses to this expense tag, it is handling behind the, it will handle behind the front end, because we are making again one new module, that is UI controller, which is used to control the UI on this page. Okay, so this UI controller will control the UI or adding the data to this income and expenses. It will control front end. Okay, so this is actually for the front end. Okay, and this is actually for the back end. Okay, so for in the back end we will handling your budget with this controller, and in front end we will handling with this UI controller. Okay, and for this global app controller will use this UI controller and budget controller to make all the necessary changes or to perform all the functionalities in this page. Okay, so you can see that I have declared two separate independent controller. Okay, separate independent controller in this page, which is budget and the UI, and this global will handle this budget and a UI controller. Okay, so up to this point I think everyone is clear with the module and encapsulation, and also why I have created this three controller. Okay, so let me write one small code just for the explanation purpose. Like suppose I have declared one variable. Okay, and you know that how to declare function. Okay, so this is the declaration of the function. Okay, so like this you will declare one function, and for the calling you will use the syntax. Okay, but I don't want to call this method or function. Okay, because when I will trying to call this method or call this function, whenever I write, okay, after the writing of this function only I want to call. Meaning is that आपल्याला हे जे फंक्शन आपण लिहिलंय 2 ते 4 लाईनीपर्यंत, ते मला लिहिल्या लगेच कॉल करायचंय. तर ते आपण जावास्क्रिप्ट मध्ये कसं करत आहोत किंवा कसं करणार, तर जस्ट पुट parenthesis over before the function and after the function. Okay, so just put the parenthesis starting on the code itself and at the ending. Just include another opening and closing parenthesis. Okay, so this will make or this will automatically call this function when you are written. तर हा सिंटॅक्स काय करेल, तुम्ही अशा प्रकारे सिंटॅक्स लिहिलं की ओपनिंग ब्रॅकेट इथं लिहिले आणि ओपनिंग क्लोजिंग इथं लिहिले फंक्शनच्या नंतर, आणि त्याला लगेच कॉल केला. तुम्हाला हा माहिती, हा जे सिंटॅक्स आहे आपला ओपनिंग अँड क्लोजिंगचा, तो आपण फंक्शन कॉल करण्यासाठी यूज करतो. बरोबर, तर आपण आता काय केलं की हे फंक्शन लिहिल्या लगेच कॉल होणार, याला स्पेसिफिकली वेगळं कॉल करायची गरज नाही. बरोबर, तर आपण हा एक नवीन सिंटॅक्स पाहिला आता की कशा प्रकारे फंक्शन लिहिलेलं लगेच कॉल करायचं. कारण की मला लिहिलेलं लगेच मला बजेट कंट्रोलर कॉल करायचं, त्यासाठी मी एक नवीन सिंटॅक्स वापरला, तो की हा. ओके, सो इफ यू नॉट अंडरस्टँड वी विल अगेन implement this similar syntax in the UI controller also, so don't worry about this. Okay, so now we will see how this budget controller will work and how this function invoking. This is called the immediately invoked function expression. So this type of code will call immediately invoke function expression. Okay, so now I will declare one variable with the value 20, say where one function, okay, and which is just taking one parameter a and returning the addition of the x plus a. Okay, and closing that function. Okay, so here you can see I've declared one variable and declared one function. Okay, good. Okay, so then from this function what I will return, I will return one object. Okay, so you know this is the syntax of the object, and I will return one object with the key as a public or with the key as a result, for example. Okay, and again I am making this result as again object. So this is nested object, like which is outer, this one is the outer object and this one is the inner object. So okay, so this is the nested object, and what I will be returning from this return I will call the this add function and pass the parameter b. Okay, so okay, so we will not do like this. We will again create one another function. Okay, so let me create that bit because which is very useful or which is efficient. I will show you how it can be. Okay, so let's suppose this result will also take parameter b, and which is returning the result of this b. Okay, so not we will be returning b, we will call the function b and return it. Okay, so what we are doing in this return statement, okay, so we are returning one object, and you know that the syntax of the object this, we are using the curly braces for the object. Okay, and again in that I am mentioning key as a result, and again value as a again one function. And what will this function will return? It will call the function addition, which is present over here with the parameter b. So b will be passed over to this a, and b plus x, whatever the result we get, we will able to see. Okay, so we will test this code. Okay, so for I just said this is function which is automatically gets called because of this syntax. Okay, so now what it will return? It will return the result. Okay, so now for calling this result of this, we will use budget controller the dot result and pass one parameter as 20. Okay, so what does this syntax means? Okay, so as you can see, this function, what it will return? It will return one object having the key as a result and value as this. Okay, so after the calling this function, what will budget controller consist of, or what will budget controller will store? So the budget controller will store this result function. Okay, okay, so I'm calling this result from the budget controller. You can see on this line number 15, I'm calling this result from the budget controller with the value 20. So 20 will be passed to this b, and we will calling the adding function with the parameter 20, and this b or with this 20 will pass to the a, and here x is our 20, and again a which is we are passed as a 20, then the will this add function will return 20. Okay, and this add function will return 20, and this whole budget controller will return the value 20. Okay, so let me print into the console, and we will see whether it is successfully printing or not. Okay, okay, so I'm just printing this value. Okay, so before going to see that, I included the app.js. Okay, okay, so here okay, so let's see whether we are running the correct file or not. Okay, so here you can see on the console we have getting the output as 40, which is correct because the 20 will be added this 20. Okay, so I will again explain the flow. Okay, so this syntax which is called the immediately invert function expression. Okay, so this function will automatically get called because of this syntax. Okay, so what it will return? So okay, it will return this object with the key as a result and with the value of this function. Okay, so this is called a nested object. Okay, what it will return? It will call again add function which is private to this budget controller. Okay, so we will say, sir, this is we similar to result that we are using here, you can also use add. So let's see whether it will use. Okay, so as you can see here, error budget controller dot add is not a function. Okay, but is a function. How JavaScript is saying that it is not function? Okay, so the reason lies behind this is this add and this variable x, which is private to this budget controller. Okay, but what we are returning only this result as a function from this budget controller. We are not returning add, so that's why add will become the private member to the budget controller, and this result will be the global. Okay, so you can access this result from anywhere in the code, but you cannot access add outside of this budget controller. Okay, so I think this will clear the concept also, and we will write the code like this only. Okay, so up to this point, anyone having any doubt in this syntax or not understood, then please let me know in the chat box so that we will move ahead. So is anyone having any doubt? So this is, I have written this code just for the explanation purpose. We are not using this code into the project. Okay, give the responses. If you understood also, then also give the response understood, so that I will come to know that yes, you have understood it. Okay, please give the responses, else we will move forward. तुम्हाला समजलं असेल तरी पण रिस्पॉन्स द्या की हो आम्हाला समजले, कारण की त्यावर मला कळेल की तुम्हाला समजले आणि मी पुढे जाऊ शकेल. नाही तर पुढे जाऊन फायदा नाही, कारण की आपल्याला अजून याच्यापेक्षा ऍडव्हान्स कन्सेप्ट आपण घेणार आहोत, तर त्या समजायला अवघड जाईल. त्यामुळे आता सांगा तुम्हाला समजले की नाही, तर मी पुन्हा रिपीट करेल एक वेळेस. Okay. Okay, so thank you Naneshwari for the response. We will move ahead. Okay. So if you remember the concept of the closure, what do we mean by closures? Okay, so closures is nothing but the function, this function and its outer variables. So you can see that we are using the concept of the closure over here. Okay, so this is called the closure. The function, this function and its outer variables, it is called the closure. Okay, so as you can see in the code itself, which is very small, we have using the concept of the closure, that is function and its lexical scope. What do we mean by lexical scope? Is only outer variable, reference to outer variable. Okay, so as this function will return result, it will not store only this will store the reference of this variable also, that we have seen in the concept of the closure. Okay, so let me remove this code because we are not using this. I'm just trying to, with the help of this code, I'm trying to explain that. Okay, so let me write similar syntax like budget controller for the UI controller. Okay, so UI controller is equal to, again similar syntax, function which is not taking any parameter. I'm calling this function automatically or invoking just after I have written. Okay, so this is called the immediately invoking function. Okay, so it is get automatically called, and whatever the return, it will store into the UI controller. Okay, so we will write this code afterwards. Okay, so I have declared budget controller and UI controller. Okay, up to this point it is very similar, simple code. Okay, and then again I will write global app controller with the name controller. Okay, controller is equal to, again similar syntax, function which is not taking parameter right now, but it will take in the future. Okay, so controller, so for handling these two, that is for handling this UI controller and this budget controller, we are making this controller. Okay, so it should get this UI controller and budget controller. Okay, so let I am pass, so whatever the parameter you want to pass, you can pass into this. Okay, this will consider as a parameters, just like, okay, for I will show you the example function. For example, I have declared this function with the name and parameters. Okay, so what will be the meaning of this? Suppose you want to pass any parameters, for example in this type of code you are passing the parameters in this form. Okay, so here you can pass similar parameter using this syntax. Okay, so whatever parameter you want to pass, you can pass over it to here. Okay, so I will pass this budget controller and the UI controller. Okay, so here you can see I have passed these two independent controller, that is UI controller and this budget controller. I have passed into this global app controller because this controller only will handle all the our code or all our controllers. Okay, so and here this function is accepting budget, and I am changing or this is just the this budget ctrl will just having the copy of this budget control that we have seen in the function parameter concept. Okay, so next ui ctrl. Okay, so you can see that I am using different name just to avoid confusion, that which is this budget ctrl which is passed by the value only. Okay, so it will having the copy of this budget controller. Okay, so now this controller global app controller will have the access of this UI controller also and this budget controller also. Okay, so syntax, the meaning of this syntax is just simple. This global app controller will just having the control of the UI controller also and the budget controller also. Okay, so simple like this. Okay, so you will say, sir, we can write very simple function, we will not write this code. Okay, so yes, but this will create or this will having the more readability than other code which is having the writing the simple function, because if you want to change anything you have to change only to global app controller. Whatever, suppose for example, if you want to change the, suppose for example in the future you have to change these names. Okay, so in the global app controller you have not have to change to all the places, you have to just change the parameters and your code will function as earlier. Okay, or your code will try execute as earlier. Okay, so this will help you to write more readable code, and also it is very used or it is very widely used approach to write code in JavaScript. Okay, because in the newer version they are giving the new concept or new syntax, because the new syntax or new concept will having the higher performance. Okay, so we should use that. Okay, so this we can call, this will be the architecture of our project. Okay, so let me check whether it is executing the old file only or not. Okay, so we have not written any code, so I'm just trying to see whether it is running the old code. Okay, not, we will not doing anything. Okay, so great up to now. Okay, so next part, so I said this will be the controller. Okay, so from this controller we can access UI controller also and budget controller also. Okay, so now we will write actually the our first DOM manipulation. Okay, so how we can access the document object. Okay, so for example I want to access the division tag with the name class name. That we can access with the document dot query selector. Here I am using query selector. Okay, and what should we pass into this, whether it is id, class or tag name, you can pass it over here. Okay, so I will pass the class name. Okay, so you can see on this page, after clicking this function, okay, after clicking this button we should get the value from this select tag, this input tag and this input tag. Okay, after clicking this button we have to get. Okay, so first I will add one event listener on this button. Okay, so first I will add one event listener on this function. Okay, so this will be our first task, that is add event listener on this button. Okay, okay, so I will first check what is the name of that button. Where I have written. Okay, so you can see that here it is. So this is the class of that button and I will use that, and in the query selector, as this is class, I'm using dot operator to access the class. Okay, so now you can see I am accessing that class using the concept of the DOM. Okay, document dot query selector and passing the class. Okay, So now we have seen how to add event listener. Just call the method add event listener, and which event we want to access, that is click. Okay, so here the first parameter you have to give is the event. What event name? Here after the clicking of this button, the JavaScript will call this or will execute this code. Okay, so for this we will not mention the callback function over here. We are just mentioning over it here. Okay, so for example, one function with the name print message with no parameter, and just writing onto the console.log I am called. Okay, click and passing this function as a parameter. Okay, so I will explain the syntax, don't worry. Okay, so you can see that the JavaScript will add one event handler on this add button. So JavaScript will add one event handler on this button. Okay, after clicking this button, this print message, which is, if you remember, it is callback function. Okay, so after this clicking event only, the print message will call. It is called back in future. Okay, so just read this concept, called back in future. When this function will call after the clicking of this button only. Okay, so let's see whether it is calling on printing that output into the console or not. Okay, so here on the console, you can see that after clicking this button, it is printing I am called. Okay, again I will print again called 2 times. It is showing the symbol as 2, means 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. Okay, so up to now this is code we are written and which is executing successfully. Okay, so up to this point, is anyone having any doubt to access the DOM? If you have any doubt, please try to put your responses. Okay, so first I will explain the code with the help of example, and then we will write the code for our project. Okay, so if you up to this point, anyone having any doubt, please try to put your responses into the chat box. We are not using any new here. Okay, so that's the controller syntax, and that I have explained, and here just we are calling the one callback function. Okay, up to this point, so try to give the responses please, so that I will came to know that yes, you understood. And also if you understood, then also please try to put your responses, because sir is taking one quiz which is based on this 5-day workshop. Okay, so you have to understand that all the concept. Okay, on this concept based only you will have the question in the quiz. Okay, so thank you Naneshwari. I'm seeing only Naneshwari constantly giving the replies. What about others? Please give the responses. Any other wants to give reply other than Naneshwari? Okay, thank you Aditi Jagtal. Okay, so without wasting time, let move forward. Okay, so what we will doing? Okay, so actually we will not using just the call back function, or we will not just printing the function. Okay, so what are the operation we need to do for this project? First, we will get all the data from these 3 fields. Okay, that only after that only we can add it to the income on expenses. Okay, so first I will get all the data. Okay, so for this, let me add one comment, get input data. So in this I will get all the input data, and after that I will add this item to our sorry, add item to our data structure. Okay, and next okay, so we have also have to add to the UI, add to the UI. So you can see we have to do all this operation after user click this function. Okay, so after clicking this function, we have to take all the necessary inputs from the user, and then with respect to that, we have should add to the income tag or in the expense setup. So you can see I have mentioned all the work here. So first we will get the input data, then we will add the item to the data structure and add to the UI. Okay, so from here you can see that this get input data and add to the UI will belong to this UI controller, because which is related to the UI, and this add item to our data structure, which is the backend work and which is related to budget controller. Okay, so now we will use UI controller for getting input data and adding to the UI, and for budget controller we are using for the add item to our data structure. Okay, so up to this point, we will having no doubt. Okay, so next we will get the input data. Okay, so for this, let go to the CY controller. I will this name change this name to the add data. Okay, which is more meaningful. Okay, good. Okay, so now in the UI controller, what we will doing, first we will get the input data from this field. Okay, first we will get the input data from these fields. Okay, so as you can see, this UI controller, all the methods we are mentioning in the UI controller will be private. Okay, so but we want to access that inputs into this outer controller, so we have to make to the global, or we have to make should be public. So method whatever you have written for the getting the input should be the public. Okay, so let me write one statement we have written. Okay, we are returning one object, and you know this UI controller will return this object, and which is made to the public for this controller. Okay, so this object will be available throughout our code, or you anywhere you can access this object. Okay, so in the return, you know that object having in the form of the key value. Okay, so for this return I am using key as a get input, and again I am using another object. Okay, so before this I will create object afterwards which is not taking parameter. Okay, so what this function now, so first I will write the syntax. Okay, so this is somewhat complex syntax, right? So let me first explain you. Okay, so just consider this code is not present over here. Okay, so what this UI controller will now do, it will return this empty object, right? So this is the syntax of the object, we know that, and this will return the empty object. Okay, so this will return some empty object. So now consider this code only. Okay, so what it will return, it will return key as an input, and what will be the value. Okay, so now consider this code. Okay, what will be the value? Value will be the value written by this function. Okay, so whatever the value will written by this function will get into the input. Okay, जी पण आपण व्हॅल्यू या फंक्शनने रिटर्न करू, ह्या ती गेट इनपुट मध्ये स्टोअर होईल, आणि गेट इनपुट मध्ये स्टोअर झाल्यावर यूआय कंट्रोलर तो ऑब्जेक्ट रिटर्न करेल. बरोबर? ओके, आता परत हे फंक्शन काय रिटर्न करणार, यामधला कोड. बरोबर? So now we will understood the syntax like this. What this UI controller will return, it will return object with the value get input and value with this function. Okay, value with this function. Okay, so now we will get the input data. Okay, for the project we will get our input data, and you know that for accessing this HTML element we are using the DOM manipulation. Okay, so let me access this three type. We will get this type, whether it is income, whether this is expense. Okay, we will get this data, whether it is expense, whether it is income. Okay, so for this again I am using document dot get, not get, we will use the one simple method query selector. Okay, so after query selector you have to give the class or class or id name. Okay, so let me check what is the id. We will taking this id of this drop down. Okay, or this select tag. Okay, so where is this? Okay, so you can see on the line number 27 we have that. Okay, so I will copy the class of this select tab and paste it over here. Okay, as this is class I am using dot operator. Okay, and then after accessing this element I am just using its value. Okay, so now not no value. Okay. Okay, so now you can see that we are actually getting the value from this, whether it is plus or whether it is minus. But in the case of the select, this will not work. Like, it will not give you the value as a plus or negative. What it will get this value present in the option. It will either give you INC or EXP. INC for income, EXP for expense. Okay, so it will give either INC value or EXP value. Okay, so this is not should not be the semicolon. Okay, so column, because comma, because it is object, and object, the element of the object is separated by the comma, so that's why I used comma, not the semicolon. Okay, so next, description. What this is, first I will write the syntax, so which is, again I will copy this line of code. Okay, so we will store this description into this description key. Okay, so let me get the class of that also. Okay, and for the similar for our value. Okay, so let me change the name to value. And what is the class name of that value? Add value. Okay, okay, now we are having all the input data into this get input function. Okay, so we will having all this data type, which is this type, description, which is add description placeholder, whatever the user will add, it will store into this description, and similar to value. Okay, so up to this point we are clear on how we are getting the input data from this, from the user. Okay, so next, what we can get, so now you can see the UI controller will return the input data. Okay, so now what we will do, we'll store this or call this method into the this global app controller, because this, as I said, this controller will control all the our budget or all the our projects. Okay, so now from this I will call this UI controller. Okay, so you can see that I have passed with the value UI CTRL, which is UI controller, or simply UI CTRL. What is contains? Okay, so this will contains, or this will having this data. Okay, so for this I will, or what it will return, it will return the get input as key, and this will be the value. So okay, so let call get input. Okay, and as it is having no parameter. Okay, so now you can see that I am getting the user input in this controller, main controller, with the help of this independent UI controller. Okay, so now you have understood how we can access the other controller in the some other controller. Okay, so this is the syntax, or you can use this to access the this variable. Okay, so you can see that this UI controller, what it will return, it will return get input, and this inputs values. Okay, so I'm calling this function because it is function. Okay, as you can see. Okay, so what it will return, it will return one object. Okay, so we need to store that object, so let me store that object into the input. Okay, now you can see that I have stored this input, all the user input, into the input object. Okay, so let we check whether it is getting the input as we expected or not. Okay, so let me go to the page and open the console. Okay, so let me add one income with the value salary, having salary 10,000. Okay, Okay, so on the console you can see that we are able to get all the input data, whether you can see plus, for plus here inc is used because in the option tag of the HTML we are giving value as inc and description salary value. Okay, so let's check for the expense also. Expense will be like for food, which is of 1000. Okay, yes, expense is also working. Where on the console you can see that we are getting all the values of the user. Okay, up to this point we are working correctly. Okay, so is anyone having any doubt up to this point? Because we have completed first part of our project, that is getting the user input. Next we will add this item to our data structure, and now final add to the UI. Okay, up to this point is anyone having any doubt? Please ask for getting this user input, or whether you are not understood this syntax, what this UI control is doing. let me let me know so that I will explain again it. Okay, actually this is the technique, or this is the syntax that are followed many times, or this is a syntax will handled by many software developers. Okay, so is anyone having any doubt? Please try to put your responses into the chat box. Okay, so thank you, Nanishwar. No, sir, continue. Any other want to give response? Please give the response. Because the whatever project, it may be small. I know our project is very small, but the concept we are covering, which can be used for the larger project or for the complex project. Because here you can see I'm using the concept of encapsulation. Like suppose this add data will not able to access to outward outside. Okay, so for example here I want to call this controller dot add data. It will not give any output because this add data will be private for this controller. Okay, so we are actually using the concept of the encapsulation. Okay, how we are hiding the implementation details from the user. Okay, so thank you for the response. Okay, let me move forward. So next part will be add item to our data structure. Okay, so before going to add, so we will see the one new concept, that is function constructor. Okay, so you might have heard the concept of class constructor, which is used to initialize an object. Okay, for giving some initialized value to objects. So what is function constructor then? Okay, so similar concept you can apply to function constructor also. Function constructors is nothing but to initialize some values by default whenever we create an object. Okay, so we can create object of the function in JavaScript also. Okay, so now we will see how to create the object of the function. Okay, and you know that we have class constructor, so similar to this we also having the function constructor in the JavaScript. Okay, for function please try to use the first letter capital. Okay, so now for adding the data we will create the object. Okay, and in one object we will store the all these three fields. Okay, we will store all these three fields into one object, and whenever user will click this right button we will create one new object for each user income or expense. Okay, so you can say you will say we can do it by normally. Okay, you can do it by normally also, but what will happen, it will increase your data size. Okay, an object is very efficient and very nowadays used for getting the input data. Okay, so as you know this is will be the backend, like adding data to our data structure. This will be backend, so we will be adding this code into the budget controller. Okay, so for this let me create class constructor. Okay, okay, expense, I will explain the syntax also. Parameters, and okay, so now you can see following this syntax you can create the class function constructor. Sorry, by following this syntax you can create function constructor. Okay, so you will say this is the normal function. How the JavaScript will know this is the function constructor? Because you, if you observe this E, which is capital. Okay, so this is generally the way the JavaScript follows. If JavaScript engine will encounter any function name with the capital letter, it will first assume this is the class function constructor. First, JavaScript will assume this as a function constructor. But if you are observe this UI control, this also having UI, so you will say this also will be the function constructor. Okay, because the first letter is the capital. But no, let me write some code and this will understand what is the difference between the normal function and the class constructor. Okay, so first I will pass id description that we are getting from the UI, and this dot id is equal to id, this dot description is equal to description. Okay, so this dot value is equal to value. Okay, so now you can see that this will be used in the case of the objects. Okay, so from this keyword JavaScript will come to know, okay, this is the function constructor, not normal function. Okay, so JavaScript will now knowing that this expense is the function constructor and not the normal function. Okay, so what we are passing, so here you can see that what it input will consist, this input will consist of these three values: type, description, and value. And for adding to our data structure, we need this type, description, and value. Okay, so whatever the input we are getting in this input, we will pass. And what input will consist? Type, description, and value. Okay, so we will store description and value. For the type, I will tell that also, but just try to understand description and value only. We are passing and storing it to the our data structure. Okay, so just like this, I will use similar for the income. Okay, so this will be for income. So this function constructor will be for income, and this constructor will be for expense. Okay, so now we have written two function constructor which is used to initialize some values to this function. Okay, and we can create the object of this function also, like we are creating the object of the class also. So just similar, we can create the object of this function constructor also. Okay, so now the point is came that where should we store this input, or where should we store the output, or whatever the data is given by the user, where should we store? Okay, so we will use one data structure again, which is object, and in this object we will store all this data, whether it is income, expense, and description value. We will store all this data into only one. You can create like 2 to 3 also, but that will make the JavaScript has to handle these 2 to 3 variables. Okay, but I don't want to handle JavaScript should handle 2 to 3 variables, just only one. So that's why I have created only one data variable, and in data I will again create nested object. Okay, so now you know this syntax, expense and for income. Okay, so what I have written, we are storing all our items data into this object. Into this object we are storing all our data into this. What this object contains? Expenses and income. So what will this expense contains? It will contains the all the objects of this expense function constructor. And what will this income contains? It will consist of, or it will consist the objects of this function constructor. Okay, now this is the data structure that we are going to use in our project, that is all items. And in all items we are again having one object, nested object, exp and inc. This exp will consist all the objects of this expense function constructor, and this inc will consist of all the objects of this income. Okay, great. Now we have created the data members also, but the main part is remaining. Add data to this data structure. Whatever input we are getting from this, we should add to our data structure. Okay, so let's do that. And we have to return that whatever the data we have stored to the UI controller. Okay, so for this I will make it to the public. And how we can make, just return something from this function, it will become global for the outer controller or outer functions. Okay, so now I will create again one new item object, which is again nested object. Now you know what it will return. It will return an object consist of the key as a add item and value, or again this object. Okay. Okay, so let's make it simplify. We will not again use object for the simplification. We are just again write one function parameter which is getting type tsc and value. Okay, I will explain, don't worry about this. And what this function will return, okay, we will see afterwards. Okay, so now you can see that this, what will this function will do, this function will add item to our data structure. So for this adding, we will need the type, description and value. Okay, so this type, description and value, but I am using different symbols. Okay, so you will say, sir, how this budget control will access this value? Because if you see here on the line number 49, I have stored the user input to this input var. Okay, input in this input variable I have stored, and I will pass this input to this add item, and you will get all the data. Okay, so using this you will get the data. Okay, so next I will create one new variable item name. Okay, and for again for the id. Okay, now now with respect to this plus or minus, or with respect to this income or this expense, we have to store to different data structure. You know that for the expense we have to store in this data structure, and for the increment, or for sorry, for the income, we have to store into this array. Okay, so we have to handle this. Okay, which in which data structure we should store. Okay, so for this, here we will getting the type of this, whether it is inc or whether it is expense. Okay, so from this we will came to know that yes, it is if the type is strictly equal to the expense, what we should do, we will create new item with the function constructor. Using function constructor, we are creating now the object, what is expense, passing it as id, dsc, not dsc, and val. Okay, so I will explain, don't worry. And let initialize the value of this id is equal to 0. Okay, now you can see that what I have written, if the type is expense, that is when user will select this value, that is minus or which is equal to the expense, because we have used expense here value, so it will store the value as expense. Okay, so for example, if it is expense, then we are creating the object of this function constructor. We are creating object of this function create constructor and passing id, description and value. It will store into this id, description into this description, and value into this value. And for this object it will assign the id. Okay, for example, we want to get the id for this object, it will store like this dot id, and you know that this will point to the current object. Okay, and for the current object, the value of the id will become whatever the id we are passing. Okay, so and let's handle for the other if also. If the type is strictly equal to the income, what we will do, we will again create the function constructor, but for this time we are for the income. Okay, whether is okay, so okay, by mistake okay, so now we are strictly checking whether this is expense or this is increment. Okay, all this is correct. Okay, so up to this point we have did like whether the expense, whether the user is adding expense, then we will creating the expense object. If it is income, then we will are creating the income. Okay, so now we will add this new item object in this data structure, and you know that this data will be present in the closure of this function. We can easily access that. Okay, so let's access that and store our data into the data structure which is named data. Okay, so let's store the data which is what object, so we should use the dot operator. Okay, all items. Okay, so now we are having all objects, and in that object with respect to this exp and inc we should add. Okay, so how we can add? You can use the array syntax for in case of the object also. Okay, so I will write. Okay, so now what is the meaning of this data? So data dot all items, it will get this all item, and the all items again consist of the another object. Okay, so we are using the array like syntax. Okay, because we are passing the dynamic type, whether it is exp or inc we don't know, it will depend on the user input. So that's why I am providing type. Suppose for example here it is expense, though then it will get this array, because data dot all items dot or exp, so it will get this array and add into this. But we don't want to add to expense again and again. We are adding to depend on this type, whether this is exp or inc. Okay, now we are using the array function which is push. We have learned that. Okay, in the case of the array, and we are adding the new item. As we know that the array in the JavaScript can store any value, so we are storing the objects of this expense and income. Okay, so now we are successfully added the data into our data structure, and just we will return this new item. Okay, we are returning whatever we have stored, we are just returning from this. Okay, now the operation is completed. We are adding data to the data structure. So the operation of this budget controller has completed. It is adding successfully the data. Okay, so let me check whether it is adding successfully data or not. Okay, so for this, let me make one testing. This is only used for the testing function, which is again returning, or which is only console.log, which is printing this new item. Okay, well, why should it? Okay, I have not mentioned the comma. Okay, so now this testing, what it will show the item is added or not. Okay, so before going to that, we have to call this budget controller from the main controller, because what we are doing since we are started this project. Okay, so for this, let create the object of this budget controller. Okay, so now we are in the budget controller. What it will return, we have to access the add item, and it is object. So we use dot operator, budget controller dot add item, which is item or items item. Okay, which is correct spelling. Okay, the next what it should get, what it will need: type, description and value, then only it can add. So let pass it the type. What will be the type? And you know that what it get input will return, it will return where it is, it will return the object, and we can get the object data like input dot type comma input dot description, description comma input dot value. Okay, so now you can see that I have passed the whatever data required by this add item. I have passed type, description and value. Let me check where it is: type, description and input value. Okay, so what it will return, it will return new item. Okay, so let's store it also in the new item. For this I will create new item variable. Okay, and we'll store it into the new item. Okay, so now we are having new item. Okay, so let print into the console.log whether the new item is successfully printed or not. Okay, so now it should print. Let's see whether it is printing or not. Salary 100. Okay, now you can see the new item, it is the object of the income because we are adding income. Okay, now you can see that we are successfully added to this income. Okay, now you can see the id is 0 because we have initialized by default. Here you can see we are initialized to 0. Okay, and what is description? We are added salary. Okay, so you can see that we are successfully added. Okay, so let's see the whole data structure. Okay, so whatever you are, so for this we should return data. We'll give, now we will give the name whole data, and which is again function giving the parameter, not no parameter we are giving, and just returning the data. Okay, so let me check. Okay, data, and it we should return all the data. Let's call this, it will returning, so we have should console.log. Okay, so console.log, what it will be, what is the name? Budget controller dot hold data. Okay, budget controller dot hold data, adding semicolon. Let's see whether it is printing all the, I will add expense with the value 100. Okay, so you, okay, first I will again add another. Okay, now you can see that we are here, all items is object and which is nested object, and you can see that we are added one expense with the 0 description food and value 100, and also in the income array we are having the object of this income, and in the expense we are having the object of the expense from where it is getting. So you can see we are creating expense object in the case of the exp, and we are creating the object in the case income, or in the case of inc. Okay, so we are having no error up to this point. Okay, so now we are able to get the data. Okay, so up to this point, anyone having any doubt, please put it your responses in the chat box. I will see that. We will cover the last point, that is add to the url. Okay, so because whatever the data will be added by the user, we should show onto this income, with respect to income, with respect to expense. Okay, so as this is the based on the url, so let me get to url and add one new key, which is add list item. We will give them more meaningful name, which is again object not object. We will return the object from the function. Okay, so it should be double D. Okay, so add list item. So what it will contain, so for adding the list to the item, we should get the type and the this object, this object only. Okay, so we are having this input. Okay, we can easily pass the data of the correct object. Okay, so let's, I will write. Okay, so what this will object, sorry, what this object will contain. So whatever we are getting the input from the user, which is present in the input object. Okay, so we will pass that into this object, and whatever the type, that is input dot type, we will pass into this. Okay, so we are able to access the data added by the user. Okay, so we should show this income or expenses with respect to the this user operation. Okay, so let's see if type is equal to again inc. Okay, so it is inc, then we will do other operation. Else if the type, sorry, else if the type is equal to exp, which is correct. Let me check. Okay, it is correct, exp. and we are doing other operation. Okay, so for example, if the type is increment, we will add to this DOM income, and if it expense, we will add to this DOM. Simple enough. Okay, so next we should add the HTML. Okay, so for that I will create one HTML string. Okay, so here I'm using HTML. Okay, equal to, and here also I will add some HTML. Okay, so if the income is there, we will add it to this HTML we will adding, we will write it, don't worry. And for this expense we will write this. Okay, so um, based on this income, we should also add to the respective, where it is income list, or we should know whether should we add, whether it is an income tag or it is expense tag. So let's add that variable also, where should we add element. Okay, so first define it above element. Okay, so now we will assign this value to this also, element. Okay, so if it is increment, we will add to this element which is income, and if it is expense, we will add to this expense which is present in this. So this will just consist class name. Okay, so let see the what are the class name. So for income, it is income list. Okay, so it is income list, but it is class, so we have to use the dot operator. And for the expense, we are using class, so again dot operator. Now you can see I have used the element. If the increment is the income is there, we will add to this element of the HTML. If it expense, we will add to this element of the HTML. Okay, so where we can get this HTML. Okay, so for this I have written some static codes. Okay, so what how it will be shown. Okay, let me show you. In the expense list, you can see this is the type we are going to show the data on the user, but this is static, we don't want that. Okay, so we will add dynamically whatever the user has written. Okay, so let's copy this and paste it into our HTML. Oh, this is not the correct. Okay, so let make it one liner. Okay, so that we can. Okay, so we are not showing the percentage here, so let's clear it. Okay, so we are showing the value. Okay, so before doing this, I will just change something. Okay, so here we have to show the user input. Okay, so let's use the one different method of the JavaScript with %%, and we will replace that % with the respective description. Okay, description. Okay, and this value with the respective value. I will explain again this, don't worry. Just let me write one syntax. Okay, description and value, we are successfully appending this. Okay, and all other color. Okay, so let me make it one liner, because if you write this two liner, the JavaScript will consider as a different string, but we don't want that. We still want similar. Okay, so for making it string, let add a quote to this string, so that it will make string. Okay, now you can see that it becomes string. And if the income list is, if user has entered income, then we will add this HTML to this DOM. Okay, okay, so I have commented it. Okay, so let's move it, see it afterwards. Okay, it is gone. Okay, great. So now you can see I have added this HTML. Okay, so no question is there. Okay, so let's move forward. Up to this point, correct. Okay, so now if the expense is there, we will again copy the. Okay, so there is some mistake. I think I increment for the increment. Okay, don't worry, the similar is used. So for now, expense, I will copy the expense. Okay, so this. Okay, now I am again change. We are not showing the percentage, and here I will show you the value which is entered by the user. So percent, and then again description. Okay, so again make it one liner. I should copy it from the above, but let me write again. Okay, now again I will make this as a string so that we can add to the DOM. Okay, now you can see we are ready with our code. Okay, so now if the user has entered income, then we will add this element, or whether it is expense, we will add this element. Okay, great. So now what should we do? We have now HTML, we should append to the HTML. Okay, so let's write code for this. For this I will create one new HTML element, new HTML variable, sorry, then I am assigning new HTML to the this HTML. Okay, so before going to move forward, we have to replace this description, right? Whatever we have mentioned in the percentage, we should replace that, okay, with the user input. So let use the method HTML replace. What we should replace, we should replace the percent description with the what, with the this object dot description. Okay, so let me see the description or not. Okay, because we are passing input, an input we are getting. Okay, so let me check. Okay, description as a whole key, so that's why here we have to use whole key. Okay, so now you can see in this HTML, whenever the JavaScript will find percentage description, this it will replace with the current object description. Okay, and what is this object? The user input. Okay, so next again I am asking, we should again replace that value also. So similar, but we are adding to this because we have to add to this already replaced HTML. So that's why new this first this take this new HTML and then only add. What will we add? HTML dot replace. What we should now replace? Value. Okay, and then with the object dot value. Okay, so now we have replaced this div tags with respect to the user input. Okay, with respect to the user input we have changed that. Okay, so now we are having our element that should be appended to this DOM. So let add to the DOM document dot, which is very simple, like document dot query selector. And on which element should we add? It depend on the plus or minus where it is. So we are here element. Okay, so with respect to that element, whether we should add to the this in expenses list or should we add to this income list. So we can come from here whether it is income list, expense list, we are using element. Okay, so now element dot insert adjacent HTML I will use. I will explain this beforehand, before end, and adding new HTML. Okay, so now we are just remaining with just 2 to 3 minutes for completing our project. So just wait for the 2 to 3 minutes. What this will do, this query selector will select this element based on the user input, whether this is income list or expense list, and insert adjacent HTML before end. What is meaning? Okay, so it will take income list and add to the before end. Before ending this division, it will add. Before ending this expense, it will add. Okay, so this is just the meaning. Before end, it will add this new HTML. Okay, so now we should add. Okay, so let's call this, which is the final line of our code, and it will add to the our UI. So let's see UI controller dot add list item. Okay, add list item, correct. And what we should pass, we should pass new item because it needs object, and our new item is an object. Okay, and in type. Okay, so here you can see it is offset in object, which is the entered by user. So this is present in new item, and input dot type, which is present in this input. Okay, so let check whether this code is running or not. So here I am adding one expense, which is salary, which is suppose 10,000. So okay, so here it is not replacing description. What is the error? Hmm. Okay, so it is correct. So let me check the syntax. Okay, should we make it a single quote? Let's see whether it will make any change. Not description, value. Okay. Hmm. Okay, so it's showing some error, but you can see the salary with the value 10,000 it added successfully. I'm not able to find what is the error. Replace html dot replace percent. Percent value is again printed. I'm replacing it. Okay, so let it be new html. Okay, so okay, so I should replace this with the new html. Okay, whatever the html. Okay, so now let's see whether it is adding successfully or not. It should add now time. Okay, yes, we have got our response. Okay, so now we are completed our project. So error will should be it is adding to the new html, not new html plus. It will replace in this html only. Okay, so let's play with it. We will add first salary, whether it is adding or not. 10,000. Yes, it is adding. So let's add expense food of rupees 1,000. Okay, so as is, then again add food. Okay, so we are able to add and again expense. For example, what will be the income from project, suppose, for from project. So let's add 15,000. Okay, so it will add to the X income. Okay, so based on this input it will add to the this project or this project. Okay, so this is our project and we are completed with the project. Is anyone having any doubt? Sorry for taking so much time today. Okay, so let me. Okay, so anyone having any doubt, please try to put your responses into the chat box. Whether you have understood this code or if you understood this project or this code, I will share this code with you all. Don't worry. But let me know how many of you understood. Just please give the response as today is the last day. The just final response I want from you guys. Just tell me you are understood or not. Yes, please give the responses. You understood or not? Okay, thank you, Vaishnavi. Any other? So thank you, Naneshwari has given one response. No doubt, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for your guidance. Okay, thank you, Naneshwari. Thank you for a response. Thank you, Akash, Tamanna. Thank you all guys. So this is our JavaScript workshop and I hope you learned something from this 5-day workshop. And I would like to thank to all the faculty members and all the students for attending this 5 days workshop. And I'm very thankful and thank you for giving the constant replies. Okay, so thank you, Sanket Genius. Understood, sir. Nice work. Thank you for the comment. Okay, so I'm done from my side, sir. Is anyone you want to share with the students? Thank you, Rishikesh. Thank you, Shital. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Hello, sir. Hello. Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you. Anyone present from the college? Okay, just reply. Hello, sir. Are you there? Thank you, Damini. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you for the response. I hope you learned something. If you have any doubt, just message me on WhatsApp. I will try to explain your doubt or solve your doubt. Thank you, Sakshi. Hello, sir. Hello. Hello, sir. Hmm. Okay, so just wait for 2 minutes. I will reply. Hello, sir.
हॅलो.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
हा, येतोय आवाज येतोय.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are audible. येतोय आवाज, sir.
ओके, थँक्यू. जस्ट 1 मिनिट.
All the students, please wait. Sir, want to make some announcement.
आय थिंक आपलं वेबिनार आजचं आणि शेवटचं सेशन कम्प्लीट झालेलं आहे, राईट?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. So thank you, sir, for giving your valuable guidance to our all students, and I definitely our students you will get the various knowledge. Okay. व्हिडिओ अटेंडन्स. ओके. सगळे स्टुडंट्स आहेत, सगळ्या स्टुडंट्सला एक रिक्वेस्ट आहे की सगळ्यांनी आपले व्हिडिओ ऑन करायचे. एक व्हिडिओ अटेंडन्स आपल्याला घ्यायची आहे वेबिनारचे. व्हिडिओ अटेंडन्स स्नॅपशॉट घ्या तुम्ही. ते सगळ्यांना सांगितलं. सगळेजण आपला व्हिडिओ ऑन करा. All students are requested please on your video so we can take your video attendance. मारा तुम्ही. सगळ्यांनी व्हिडिओ ऑन करा बरं. प्रणिता, प्रांजल थोरात, प्रतीक्षा डावकर, प्रतीक्षा, प्रिया, समीक्षा. एक अटेंडन्स घ्यायची आहे म्हणून आपल्याला तुमचे व्हिडिओ ऑन करा. मॅडम तुम्ही पण स्नॅपशॉट काढून ठेवा व्हिडिओचे. ओके. स्नॅपशॉट घेतीलच तोपर्यंत मी कन्क्लूड सेशन आणि काही पुढचे इन्स्ट्रक्शन सांगून देतो. तर खरोखरच श्याम सरांनी एक 5 दिवस आपल्यासाठी खूप महत्वाचा वेळ दिला आणि सरांना मी रिक्वेस्ट केल्यानंतर सरांनी थोडा वेळ न घालवता की आम्हाला लगेच पुढच्या 5 ते 10 मिनिटांमध्ये कन्फर्मेशन दिलं की नाही आपण आपल्या विद्यार्थ्यांसाठी असं वेबिनार घेऊ किंवा आपलं STTP प्रोग्राम घेऊ. आणि त्यातनं निश्चितच मुलांना आम्ही जो सिलेबस दिला होता तो सिलेबस प्लस इंडस्ट्रियल ओरिएंटेड काही गोष्टी आहेत त्या सुद्धा गोष्टी सरांनी आपल्याला शेअर केल्या. आणि खरोखर सरांचा कॉन्टॅक्ट आपली स्टुडंट सुषमा जोरी हिच्या मार्फत झाला आणि तिचं सुद्धा समर्थ शैक्षणिक संकुलाच्या वतीने मी आभार मानतो. कारण एक जोडणाऱ्याचा दुवा सुद्धा महत्वाचा असतो. म्हणून सुषमा तुझं सुद्धा आमच्या समर्थ शैक्षणिक संकुलाच्या वतीनं मी आभार मानतो. आणि आपण सर्व पार्टिसिपेंट खूप चांगल्या पद्धतीनं वेबिनारला STTP प्रोग्रामला प्रतिसाद दिला आणि निश्चितच तुम्हाला ह्या STTP प्रोग्राम मधनं वर्कशॉप मधनं गोष्टी शिकायला मिळाल्या असतील. याच्याही व्यतिरिक्त खूप साऱ्या गोष्टी आपल्या समोर आहेतच आणि ते आपल्याला मार्गदर्शनापूर्वी तुम्हाला भेटतच राहतील. असे अनेक प्रोग्राम आजपर्यंत आपण ऑर्गनाईज करत आलो आहोत आणि इथून पुढे आमचे काही STTP प्रोग्राम प्लॅन मध्ये आहेत की वेगवेगळ्या प्रत्येक सेक्शन वरती, प्रत्येक डोमेन वरती आम्ही वेबिनार ऑर्गनाईज करणार. परंतु याला सगळ्या गोष्टी महत्वाची की आपण हा जो आजचा फॅकल्टी प्रोग्राम आहे, फॅकल्टी STTP प्रोग्राम, की याला अनेक कॉलेजेसचे फॅकल्टी सुद्धा जॉईन झाले होते. खरोखर सर तुमचं सर्वांचं पार्टिसिपेंटचं मी आभार मानतो. आणि आजचा वेबिनार किंवा आजचं आपलं हे जे STTP प्रोग्राम आहे 5 दिवसाचं, हे व्यवस्थितरित्या आपण सर्वांनी आम्हाला सहकार्य केलं आणि तो व्यवस्थितरित्या पूर्ण झाला असं मी जाहीर करतो. यानंतर एक 2-3 गोष्टी अशा आहेत की आपण जसं ठरवल्याप्रमाणे आपण एक छोटीशी स्मॉल टेस्ट घेणार आहोत. 20 क्वेश्चनची MCQ टेस्ट आहे. श्याम पांडव सर आणि आमच्या स्टाफने ती सेट केलेली आहे. तुमच्या समोर ती लिंक भेटून जाईल आणि त्याला 50% पासिंग आहे. ते पासिंग झाल्यानंतर ऑटोमॅटिकली तुमच्या मेल ID ला तुमचे सर्टिफिकेट भेटून जातील. आधी एक्झाम द्या. एक्झाम झाल्यानंतर तुम्हाला एक फीडबॅक लिंक प्रोव्हाइड केली जाईल. फीडबॅक लिंक फिलअप करा आणि त्याच्यानंतरच तुम्हाला सर्टिफिकेट तुम्हाला तुमच्या मेलला भेटून जातील. याच्यात काही प्रॉब्लेम्स डाऊट्स असतील तर आपला व्हॉट्सअप ग्रुप अजूनही कार्यरत आहे आणि पुढे सुद्धा कार्यरत राहील, जो STTPचा आपण बनवलेला आहे. तर त्याच्यावर तुम्ही तुमचे काही क्वेश्चन्स प्रॉब्लेम असतील तर तुम्ही सांगू शकता. आम्ही तुम्हाला तुमचे काही प्रॉब्लेम्स डाऊट्स असतील निश्चित ते सोडवण्याचा प्रयत्न करू. आणि या आपल्या STTP प्रोग्राम मध्ये अनेक लोकांचं सहकार्य लागलं. त्यात आमचे समर्थ इंजिनिअरिंग कॉलेजचे प्राचार्य आहेत आदरणीय डॉक्टर पाटील सर, त्याचप्रमाणे समर्थ पॉलिटेक्निकचे प्राचार्य आदरणीय कपिले सर, त्याचप्रमाणे पॉलिटेक्निकचे कॉम्प्युटरचे HOD होकरकर सर आहेत. त्याचप्रमाणे आमच्या समर्थ इंजिनिअरिंगचे ऍडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव्ह ऑफिसर आदरणीय गाडेकर सर आहेत. आणि तसेच आमचं संपूर्ण कॉम्प्युटर इंजिनिअरिंग डिपार्टमेंट, मग ज्यात आमची टेक्निकल टीम मध्ये जोंधळे मॅडम असतील, शिंदे सर, सिंगोटे सर, स्नेहा मॅडम, शेळके मॅडम, जाधव सर आहेत. असे सर्वांचंच या प्रत्येक प्रोग्राम मध्ये सहकार्य आहे आणि त्यांच्या मार्फतच आपण हे सर्व प्रोग्राम व्यवस्थितरित्या करू शकतो. त्याचप्रमाणे आपण सर्वजण या STTP ला जॉईन झालात आणि निश्चितच आपल्याला या STTP मधनं आउटकम भेटलंच असेल असं मी व्यक्त करतो. आणि आपला STTP प्रोग्राम आज या ठिकाणी संपन्न झाला असं मी जाहीर करतो. यानंतर आपल्याला काही डाऊट्स प्रॉब्लेम्स असतील तर आपण आपल्या व्हॉट्सअप ग्रुपवर शेअर करू शकता. लिंक सुद्धा तुम्हाला व्हॉट्सअप ग्रुपवर शेअर केली जाईल. अटेंडन्सची लिंक असेल. पहिल्यांदा आता एक्झामची लिंक आम्ही शेअर करू, त्याच्यानंतर फीडबॅक फॉर्मची लिंक शेअर करू आणि ते झाल्यानंतर सर्टिफिकेट ऑटोमॅटिकली तुमच्या मेलला भेटून जातील. ओके. आणि श्याम सरांचे जे काही PPT जे काही डेटा मटेरियल आहे ते आपल्यासोबत शेअर करतच आहेत. आणि लास्ट बट नॉट लिस्ट, श्याम सर वन्स अगेन थँक्यू फ्रॉम समर्थ ग्रुप ऑफ इन्स्टिट्यूशन. आणि विशेष म्हणजे असे आपले जे STTP प्रोग्राम आहेत हे प्रोग्राम ऑर्गनाईज करण्यासाठी आमच्या समर्थ शैक्षणिक संकुलाचे सन्माननीय सेक्रेटरी आदरणीय विवेक शेळके सर, त्याचप्रमाणे एक्झिक्युटिव्ह डायरेक्टर आदरणीय वल्लभ शेळके सर यांच्या मार्गदर्शनातूनच आम्ही हे वेबिनार किंवा STTP प्रोग्राम, FDP प्रोग्राम हे ऑर्गनाईज करतो. आणि त्यांचं सुद्धा मी आभार मानतो की आम्हाला परवानगी दिली आणि मार्गदर्शन सुद्धा केलं. तर आज आपण इथेच थांबूयात. पुन्हा असेच वेबिनार काही प्लॅन मध्ये आहेत, काही वर्कशॉप प्लॅन मध्ये आहेत, त्याची माहिती तुमच्यापर्यंत पोहोचली जाईल. फक्त आपल्या सर्वांनी त्या अनेक हे जे काही आम्ही प्रोग्राम अरेंज करतो त्याचा निश्चितच लाभ घ्यायचा आहे. थँक्यू वन्स अगेन. थँक्यू ऑल ऑफ यू. थँक्यू सर. पांडव सर, पांडव सर तुमचा व्हिडिओ ऑन करा जरा. श्याम पांडव सर.
सॉरी सर, ऍक्च्युली मी सध्या नाही करू शकत त्यामुळे सॉरी सर.
ओके, ठीक आहे, ठीक आहे, चालेल. ठीक आहे, थँक्यू.
थँक्यू सो मच सर. थँक्यू गाईज.
हो हो हो. श्याम पांडव सर, तुम्हाला पुन्हा एकदा आमच्या सोबत वेबिनार करायचा आहे वेगळ्या टॉपिकवर. आम्ही ऑलरेडी डिसाईड केलं आहे, तर ते आपण चर्चा करू.
चालेल चालेल सर, नो प्रॉब्लेम.
ठीक ठीक. थँक्यू सर.
थँक्यू.